Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to Kitaj, and today we're going to be talking about James Harden. How could we not talk about James Harden after last night? Game 6 in the Western Conference Semifinals Series, 2 vs 3 seed. The 2 seed San Antonio Spurs dispatched the 3 seed Houston Rockets in an elimination game. They're up 3-2. They're playing in Houston, and they absolutely destroyed them. I mean, this wasn't close in any way, shape, or form. They won by 39 points. They held Houston to a season-low 74 points, and those 74 points were lowest by like 15 points. Okay, this wasn't just a season-low in points, but it was a season-low by 4. Incredible. I mean, nothing like this could have been anticipated, especially barring the circumstances of Kawhi Leonard not playing in this game. James Harden's primary defender for the majority of this series not playing. That lockdown defender Kawhi Leonard is, the two-time defensive player Kawhi Leonard is not in this game. So, you'd think James Harden's load to carry is, a little bit easier now. You don't have to deal with that guy that's going to kill you on both sides of the floor normally, but the exact opposite happened. And we all know the story. James Harden only scored 10 points. He made 2 of 11 shots. He committed 6 turnovers. He fouled out of this game. He was just downright awful. He played arguably his worst game of his NBA career. He was that bad, not just on the offensive end, but he was constantly picked on the defensive end and exposed time and time again throughout this game down low in the post because it's such a matchup nightmare, and the Spurs go at James Harden. He can't guard one of their guards, really. They don't want to put him on one of their guards, so they put James Harden on Pau Gasol or whoever down low, and he's just getting abused. But that's not the point of this video. You might read this title and think it's a little bit harsh. You might think this is, overreacting. But that's what we do. I mean, if you want to make an entertaining YouTube video, you got to be ready to make a huge hot take. I mean, this is a very hot take that I'm making. James Harden will never win an NBA Finals. And give me a sec, because there's more to this. He's never going to win an NBA Finals as the number 1 guy on an NBA basketball team. That's the hot take here. That's my prediction. As the number 1 guy, James Harden is incapable of winning an NBA Finals, and I'll tell you why. First of all, and this doesn't even have to do with the fact that you got LeBron James dominating the East, and a James Harden-led team is not going to beat a LeBron James-led team. That's just not going to happen. And not also having to do with the fact that the Warriors just put together the greatest, on paper, lineup ever, and are the scariest team in the league right now. And you also got the San Antonio Spurs, who are always looking really good. So Houston's basically, at the best, going to be a 3 seed and maybe a 2 seed if the Spurs, take it easy one year. They're not going to be a 1 seed in the West, first of all. But what you saw last night is a perfect demonstration of the reason why James Harden cannot be built around as your player to win a championship. And it might sound crazy, might sound ridiculous. This guy is an MVP candidate. I mean, he's a top 2 MVP candidate in the NBA. He just came off a season where he put up 29 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds per game, led his team to a 55 win. I believe it was 55, maybe it was 57. I don't know, I don't remember, but it was somewhere between 55, 57, maybe 58. Either way, mid to high 50 win mark, and, he looks great in the regular season. Now, look, there's no limit on how good James Harden can be in the regular season. I mean, the guy could average 30 plus, 12 plus assists. He could win MVP back-to-back. He doesn't have limits on his game in the regular season at all, because the regular season is where James Harden thrives. Now, I'm not going to come up and say that James Harden's a terrible playoff player, because he isn't. I mean, he's had some great playoff games in his career. But in the biggest games, the games that matter the most, James Harden isn't going to be his best self. And we've seen it time and time again. We can throw it all the way back. And this was something that we saw early in his career. In the 2012 NBA Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Miami Heat. This is when he was a 6th man. And, he wasn't really relied on to be that guy that he is now. Of course, okay, he was a 6th man, the 6th man of the year. But still, nonetheless, he came off the bench. He was the third scoring option on this team, but he disappeared in that series. I mean, he was a key component of this team, this Thunder team back then, and he couldn't give him anything in that series, especially in those games 3 and 4. He was a disappearing act, and, that was a sign. We started looking at James Harden as, okay, he didn't show up in that first finals, but, he's getting better. He's a young player. He's gonna play more playoff games throughout his career. We're gonna see how he develops. And then, we get to 2015. The 2015, the year where The Houston Rockets, they were a 2 seed, and they were in the Western Conference Finals. And this Rockets team, down 3-1, you know, and they had legit chances in this series. But actually, let's throw it back to Game 2. In Game 2 of this series, James Harden, on the last possession of this game, in the biggest moment of this game, the biggest moment of his career, probably, just because he's leading this team. He's the number one guy. He's got to bring them to victory. He couldn't deliver. He turned the ball over on the last shot. Didn't even get a shot up to end Game 2, and they went down 2-0, I believe. And you know, you can throw it back even further because they played the Clippers, and in Game 6 they came back. He was on the bench the whole time. And that was a game where they would have been out. You know, they would have been done. He wasn't even in the game, but they still came back. And he was benched just because, you know, he wasn't getting it done out there. But this isn't really like to look back at James Harden's playoff failures. But what I'm doing is I'm just pinpointing the times where you gotta be at your best. You gotta bring it. You gotta get that killer edge, that mentality that I just don't think this guy has. And James Harden, in that Warriors game in Game 5, he committed 12 turnovers. I mean, he set the NBA record in that game. And last year, you know, they went down in 5 in the first round of the Warriors, and you know, nothing was happening there. But this year they had a legit chance. They were a 3 seed. They played the Spurs. They get that huge Game 1 victory, and then not only at the end of Game 5, in this series was James Harden terrible. In overtime, he didn't score. He committed 3 turnovers. You know, he couldn't take advantage of the terrible offense of San Antonio by scoring a few points. He couldn't get big buckets. He couldn't get a basket when you needed him to. And that's something you need from a go-to player, and he couldn't do it. Now, this is the moment where, you know, we can just say now that James Harden doesn't have the killer edge of a number 1 player on an NBA Finals team. And because it's just this guy, when he runs into adversity, when he's up against a tough challenge, and even when he's not. I mean, there are times when this guy just folds, like in Game 6. He didn't even look like he wanted to play. He scored 10 points. If you're James Harden, I mean, think about what Russell Westbrook would have done. I heard this so many times today and yesterday. What would Russell Westbrook have done? I mean, people were saying, oh, well, look, it's not Russell Westbrook playing. Regardless, you know, Russell Westbrook probably would have put up like 50 points, and, you know, think about other good players, other great players that could lead a team to the NBA Finals. Kawhi Leonard. What have Kawhi Leonard done in a Game 6? Kawhi Leonard, I think he could have put up 30, 35 points, give you a good game. Kevin Durant, he could have put up 40. LeBron James would have given you his best, because we know LeBron James. LeBron James is basically the prototype for, you know, what you need a number 1 player on your championship team to be, in terms of, you know, how he gets up for those great games, those huge games. James Harden can't do that in the playoffs. This was incredible because it's not like he was up against this juggernaut of a team that, you know, he had little to no chance against. The Rockets were heavily favored to win this game. I mean, I don't think a lot of people had the Spurs winning. A 3-2 lead. The Rockets had shown multiple instances of dominance throughout this series. They had a huge 30-point win in Game 1. They had another blowout win in Game 4. Okay, their 2 wins that they got were huge wins. And, you know, people are thinking, well, look, they get their shooters going, and they can stop the Spurs from scoring because they don't have their best scorer and they don't have their best defender. They can get James Harden attacking and getting the line more. James Harden didn't even look interested. He didn't take the challenge. He just kind of left it, and he didn't do anything. He made 2 shots all game, and he committed 6 turnovers. He fouled out of this game. He was done. He wanted to leave the game. He had enough. He waved the white flag. I mean, I don't understand how you can come into a game like this and not be firing, not be trying to get going, not be trying to drop 40. I mean, you gotta. This is it. And James Harden was like, it's like he accepted defeat before the game. It's like he knew it was going to happen before the game. I don't understand how a guy can do that. You know, people are talking about, was he drugged? I don't think it was that bad. But what it does do is it shows you that this isn't, you know, a surprise. A lot of people were saying it's crazy. It was crazy. But when you look in the grand scheme of things, this isn't that crazy of a moment to see, you know, look what James Harden has done in these games. It doesn't work. It's not working. And this is why I've come to this conclusion of why James Harden can never win an NBA Finals as a number 1 or a primary option. And, you know, do you see James Harden jumping on, you know, a great team and being like the second or third guy again? I mean, I don't know. I think James Harden wants to be the main guy. So I think he's going to stay in Houston for probably the rest of it. I mean, until he's really old, but like that's out of the picture. Any old guy can jump onto a great team and win a title. Anybody. So I'm not talking, just forget that. Don't think about like, okay, well, he can win a ring when he's 40 and he joins, like some dominant player. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. In his prime, I don't think he's leaving. I think he'll stay in Houston. But unless you get a juggernaut squad around James Harden, there's absolutely no way, because James Harden's got to lead the guys that are on his team, and he can't. He's proven time and time again. It's happened 3 or 4 or 5 times in the playoffs. He's had these failures, like a LeBron 2011 failure, but it's happened over and over again. It's not like, oh, he just had this huge meltdown. Like, no, this is just a reoccurrence. And it's incredible because James Harden took these huge steps this season. He was looking like a top 5 player in the NBA, which, I think, I don't know. I don't know if I can put him in the top 5 right now after this, because now I'm like, oh, well, this guy's not going to do anything for you in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's great. But in the playoffs, you need a guy to... It's incredible, the meltdown he had. Everybody's talking about this. And, yeah, that's my thought on it. He had those years to change. Okay? For those telling me, look, he can change and get better. He can perfect this imperfection, right? I don't know. I don't know if he can, because that's what you should have been saying, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and people were saying it, and I was thinking that. I was like, okay, we'll just give this guy some more chances, in 2012. But then he comes back in 2015, and you see the same thing. Then it happens again this year. I don't know. And when you think about it, look at this year's playoffs. It wasn't just, it was in game 4, it was in game 5. And the thing about it, you look at that first round, oh, well, they played so well. James Harden didn't even play that well in the first round. They got some real good efforts out of those support players in that first round. And I'm really questioning James Harden's value just because of the fact that, this bench group, or the group that's, without him, was able to do very well when he was off the court throughout the playoffs. Okay, he didn't really make that much of a difference whether he was on it or off it. But then when you need him in a situation like this, it just couldn't happen. And I don't know, man. It's something like just a lack of mental toughness, I think. And if you're gonna be the number 1 guy on a championship team, you can't have a lack of mental toughness. I'm just thinking about what I said. And look, I'll admit if I'm wrong in a few years, if this guy just has a resurgence, he comes back and he's just super motivated. But I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't, because he's had those chances to do that. He's been like this for years and years, and when it seemed like he wouldn't be like this, he's gotten better, don't get me wrong, but how can you go into a game? You've been in the NBA for like 7-8 years, right? I think that's right. For a long time, you've been in the playoffs, you've been in the finals, you know what this is about, you know what effort you have to give to win these games, you know how important this game is. He's been there, okay? It's not like this is some young player that, he's just, he needs more chance, he needs to be there more. No, he's already been there. And this is a second round matchup against the Kawhi Leonard, the Spurs team, where you couldn't score more than 10 points. You couldn't score more than DeJounte Murray. You couldn't make more than 2 shots. Incredible that, and look, you can credit the Spurs for this a little bit. I don't know. I don't think you can credit the Spurs for how they played offensively, how they locked up the other guys. But James Harden wasn't being locked up this game. He really wasn't. If you watch it, it's not like he was being pressured. It's not like there were guys all over him 24/7. No, he wasn't even playing hard. You could rewatch it. He wasn't even playing hard. He wasn't trying. Wasn't looking for a shot. Okay, he wasn't coming off those screens trying to draw fouls. Which is funny because that's what he always does. But he just wanted to not be part of the game. He just looked uninterested. I don't even know how to describe this anymore. I think I've used all of those adjectives. That's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, comment what you think of James Harden's performance. Do you think I'm right or wrong about this? What do you think of his future? How is he going to be regarded next year? What are people going to think about James Harden? You think about like, oh, the Warriors blowing a 3-1 is going to stick with them. Curry choking in the finals is going to stick with him. LeBron choking in that 2011 finals stuck with him, but then he redeemed himself. But what is Harden's reputation like now? How much does it change? I think it changes a lot because the playoffs are clearly much more important than the regular season, and that's where you got to capitalize, and James Harden couldn't. That's going to do it. Subscribe if you're new. I'm out. Thanks for watching, all of you. I appreciate the love, and thanks for watching, y'all.